Hello to you all, our beautiful listeners, and welcome back to our podcast. Today's topic is the brain.
So we need to start this episode with a little honesty because this topic, it almost didn't make it onto our list because of you.
Yes, that's true. At first, I didn't get it, and I have to admit, when you suggested we talk about how grief affects the brain, my first thought was, well, isn't that a boring topic? Will people actually be interested in listening to that? I guess I didn't quite see the point. I thought, isn't that just a part of being sad? Isn't that just emotions or things we've already talked about before? Do we actually need a full episode to devote to the brain?
Yeah. And I was like, Katrine, no. This is exactly the kind of stuff that messes with your whole life when you're grieving. And I think a lot of people don't realize how physical and complicated grief can be because of this, the lack of knowledge and openness regarding this. Because it's not just crying and sadness, it's confusion, memory loss, anxiety, sleep issues, this weird brain fog that just won't lift, you know?
Right. And the more we talked about it and the more you shared from your own experiences, I really started to get it. The memory loss is something that is really interesting to me. It is actually full on body and mind experience. Grief can literally knock the wind out of your entire system. It changes how you think, how you react, how you feel yourself. I for sure seen it in you and people around me too, but I never really had the words for it until now.
And I've felt it deeply. I mentioned in the last episode about me becoming a hypochondriac, for instance, and we had a laugh about it, but that was a side effect I have from all this, and we will come back to this more today. But after my husband died, I couldn't think straight. I'd walk into rooms and forget why. I struggled to finish a sentence even sometimes and still do. Just to find the right words can be hard. I'd feel numb, angry, exhausted all at the same time. But I wasn't myself. And now I can say, of course, I wasn't. But at the time, I thought something was wrong with me, like I suddenly suffered from a kind of dementia or something. But now I understand that's what grief and trauma does to you. It scrambles you in a way, and it doesn't just go away because time passes or people say you're strong. Your whole system goes into survival mode, and knowledge about this actually helped me a lot.
And I think so many people can relate to that, especially those who've been through something big, whether it's loss, illness, or even a major life change. You might look fine on the outside, but inside, you feel completely upside down.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do this episode, not to get all scientific, though we'll bring in a bit of that too, of course, but just to reflect on what grief and emotional shock really does to us, to the brain, to the body, and to the way we feel connected to the world around us in general.
So today, it's a slightly more scientific episode, your personal experience with this, and that is so important to share. So if you ever felt off after something difficult, you're not imagining it. You're not broken. It might just be your brain doing what it needs to get through something hard. It's your body trying to protect you, I think we can say.
Yeah. And even my foggy brain, hello, maybe also perimenopause, maybe, baby. I've been reading up over the years and thinking a lot about this lately. So today we're talking about shock, emotional chaos, trauma, and everything that happens when life hits you harder than you'd ever expect. First of all, I must say, grief and trauma overlap, but not everyone who experiences grief also experiences trauma. But again, this is my story and my experience with all of this, and therefore this is important to talk about. I will keep repeating this, but I don't want people to think that I'm one who thinks I have all the answers to it, because I definitely don't. And we did, as I said, have to read up on this topic also.
Yeah, I definitely had to. And again, the more you share, I'm sure it helps someone who has experienced something similar. So don't worry about that.
You're right. So, anyways, grief is a natural emotional response to loss, whereas trauma occurs when an event overwhelms a person's ability to cope, leaving lasting physiological and psychological effects. Losing a loved one is deeply painful, but in many cases, people grieve in a way that allows them to process their emotions, they adjust, and eventually find a new normal. Healthy grieving can involve sadness, longing, and even despair, but it doesn't always leave a person in a prolonged state of distress or dysfunction.
So grief and trauma are related, but not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Grief and trauma are connected, but they're not always the same. However, for some, grief can become traumatic, especially when the loss is sudden, violent, or deeply shocking. That's important to recognize. And for me personally, grief wasn't just about feeling sad, it was a full body experience. My brain literally rewired itself in a way. And I think a big part of that is because I lived with so much uncertainty for years. And that kind of stress changes you. At times, I didn't even feel like the same person anymore. My thoughts, my reactions, even how I experienced the world, everything shifted. And honestly, it was terrifying. It felt like this constant undercurrent of fear, like my body was always bracing for something else to happen, and not in a positive way.
That must be really hard to live like that, always waiting for something to happen. So, how would you describe this feeling? I mean, can you?
This is so hard to explain, but maybe the best way I can describe it from my point of view, anyway, is that feeling when you're waiting for someone you love to check in, like, say, your kid is out late going to visit a friend or something, and they promise to text you when they are there, but they don't. And then you try calling and it goes straight to voicemail, that kind of feeling.
Oh man, that is definitely not a good feeling. The
No.
stress and yeah, you just
Mm,
want to know.
yeah. And that instant panic, that stomach drop, heart racing, full body anxiety, where your brain starts scanning through every worst case scenario, that feeling.
Hmm.
That's kind of what grief and trauma does or can do. Except it doesn't go away, for me at least, like ever.
Wow.
It fades some, yeah, and you can find coping mechanism that helps you to some extent, but it also just sits there in the background all the time, sometimes louder, sometimes more quiet. It's exhausting, and I think this is the best way for me, at least, to explain how I felt back then, and unfortunately still do, kind of, sometimes.
Hmm.
But I must say, it's much more in control now than before.
Yeah, that's good at least. And
Yeah.
I can understand what you mean, that awful feeling in your stomach when something feels off. I can't imagine living with that all the time. That sounds, I mean, just so emotionally draining. Grief and, I mean, trauma, it is really hard work, isn't it?
Definitely hard work. That's the word. And trauma occurs not just after a loss or living with uncertainty for years. It can be so many things. People experience childhood trauma, abuse. I mean, the list goes on. And I believe this is such an important topic to discuss because grief and trauma affects people on such a deep level, emotionally, mentally, and even physically. And yet they're often misunderstood both by those experiencing them, I mean yourself, and by the people around them. At least that's my experience. And it's so hard to try to explain this to people. I mean, I can't really, and it's hard to understand too, I maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
So, for those who are grieving or dealing with trauma, understanding the science behind it can be really validating. It helps to explain why they might feel stuck. I mean, why their reactions don't always make sense, even to themselves, and why healing isn't just about moving on, it's about processing, adapting, and finding ways to live with what happened to you.
Yeah, and understanding, or at least try to, is really key. And also for those supporting someone, learning about grief and trauma can help them show up in a more meaningful way, maybe, instead of saying things like, you just have to stay strong or it will get better with time. They can understand that healing isn't linear and that sometimes just sitting with someone in their pain is the best support they can give, just to listen as we keep repeating.
Yeah, and this all overlaps the topics we've talked about before for sure, but maybe on a deeper level, a bit more complex, I know. But I think we should say that this conversation is about bringing more awareness, more compassion also, and hopefully helping people feel a little less alone, a little less broken, whether they're grieving, living with trauma, or trying to support someone else.
So, yeah, back to it. Preparing for this episode, we needed to take a deep dive ourselves into the theory and study this science some, as you said, because for me, this is all new. And as I understand, it's like your brain just shuts down normal functions to focus on survival. And that's something I think a lot of people don't realize, like me. They maybe expect grief to be crying and sadness, but it's also panic, exhaustion, forgetfulness, and even physical pain, as we touched into.
Hmm.
You've also used words to explain this, such as emergency mode and fight mode, and I'm guessing this is what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's it. Fight mode, emergency mode. It's such a full body experience, actually. And that all comes from the way the brain responds to trauma. When you, for instance, lose someone suddenly, or even if it's not sudden, but it's deeply painful, your brain goes into survival mode. And I understand that this is the science. The amygdala, you know, that tiny thing in your brain which controls fear and emotions, it basically takes over. It's like pressing the emergency button. I guess that's the right way to say it.
Imagine that the amygdala is a tiny almond shaped part of the brain, but don't let its size fool you. And that's not me saying that, but I actually read that. Don't let the size fool you. Because it plays a huge role in processing emotions, especially fear and stress. When you experience deep grief or trauma, the amygdala goes into this overdrive, making you hyper aware of threats and keeping you in a constant state of alert. For me, this sounds like your brain's alarm system is stuck on the on button the entire time,
Hmm,
which then maybe is why grief can feel so physically overwhelming.
right.
And
That's it.
also, yeah. And also that about stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, they're just floating through your system, which is why people in grief often feel either completely numb or hyper aware of everything. It's a physical thing for sure.
Hmm. And that was me. Hyper aware doesn't even cover it. I felt like a predator. That's the word I use for it. I
Yeah,
think that's,
we all remember when you wanted to attack someone or wanting somebody to attack you so you can attack them back.
yeah.
Predator.
But I think that's a good image for it. I mean, every noise was too loud, every smell was too strong. I could feel the tiniest change in the air, feel the energy in every situation, in every interaction. My body was literally on high alert 24/7. And some days still, to be honest.
Hmm. So your nervous system was in overdrive, or it still is in some extent?
Mm-hmm.
It's like your brain was basically saying something terrible has happened and we have to stay on guard.
That's it. And as I also mentioned before, I sometimes felt or feel like a soldier ready for war still to this day because of this. I function perfect in crisis, but normal life and interactions, they can be hard sometimes because of this.
That is heartbreaking. It's like your new normal for you. I have to be allowed to say for you. I know you don't like me to say that, but I will.
No.
And it's not even about you being afraid, I said. It's just your body doing what it thinks it needs to do to protect you.
Exactly. It's not about fear, not just fear at least. It's about wiring, I guess. It's the body keeping the score, whether you want it or not. But the thing is, you can learn to live with it. You can, I don't know, soften into it kind of. You can absolutely have a beautiful, joyful life, even when some parts of you is still holding that pain. And that has been such an important realization for me, I must
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Important point. So if you're listening right now and grief has made you feel like a completely different person, there's a reason for that. Your brain, your nervous system, it's literally adapting to something massive. It's not in your head, it's real. And you're not broken. You're just healing in your own way.
Hmm.
Nina, I know the book The Body Keeps the Score had a big impact on you. You mentioned before how it made you feel more normal in a way when it comes to living with trauma. What was it about that book that resonated so much with you?
Well, first of all, the body keeps the score is primarily about trauma, not grief. But a lot of its insights can be deeply relatable for people who are grieving, especially if their grief is complex or tied to a sudden, shocking loss. That said, not everyone who grieves will relate to the book. Grief doesn't always lead to trauma in a clinical sense, as we said, but for those who feel stuck in their grief, who experience intense stress responses, or who struggle with the way their body seems to hold on to the loss, this book can provide a lot of validation and understanding, I think.
So, what struck you the most with this book?
I think what struck me the most was how the writer Bessel van der Kolk explains that trauma isn't just something that happens in your mind, it's stored in your body. The way we react, the way we carry stress, even physical pain, it can all be linked to past experiences. And when I read that, I thought, wow, so I'm not just overreacting. This is an actual thing. And my reactions are normal, you know.
Hmm.
And I actually must say I teared up when I read some of it because I felt so sad for me, you know. And I somehow felt more normal when reading this too, when I understood it or me and my reactions more.
Yeah, I can see that. That must have been such a big relief, or I mean, comfort for you in a way. You spent years trying to make sense of why your body reacts the way it does, why some things feel unbearable, why certain moments trigger this huge emotional response that seems out of proportion. And then to read something that explains it, that validates what you've been feeling for so long. No wonder you reacted that way. That wasn't just sadness, that was recognition, right? Like someone finally put words to what you've been living with. It makes total sense that you'd feel emotional about that.
Hmm. Yeah. It's like sometimes I felt or feel like I'm too much, too sensitive, too anxious, too hyper aware, because I know for sure that my trauma and grief has changed me in many ways. And also reading this made me realize that my brain and body were actually doing what they were designed to do, to protect me. It's just that trauma rewires things, and suddenly the alarm system in your body is going off when it doesn't need to, after.
That makes so much sense. And I guess it also explains why trauma responses aren't always logical. Like you can know something is fine, but your body still reacts as if it was bad.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part. You tell yourself, I'm safe, everything is okay, but your body kind of doesn't believe you. I really notice it in certain situations anyway.
Tell us more about that. What situations?
Well, sudden sharp sounds make me very jumpy, and it's not just a little flinch. It's like my whole nervous system goes into full alert mode, and I can get really scared and sometimes angry even. I can burst out with words I normally never say. For instance, I had this incident this summer meeting a very nervous and protecting dog. He's very protecting over his family and owner. And of course, they warned me not to interact that much with him. So
It's hard for you. That's such a dog lover, isn't it?
it is because I just wanted to cuddle him, and
Yeah.
get to know him. And suddenly, when I hugged this dog's owner because she gave me a present and I wanted to thank her,
Mm-hmm.
he suddenly jumped at me, not biting.
Mm-hmm.
But I just lose my mind, kind of. I'm scared
Yeah, you get scared.
in a totally
It's
different
normal.
way,
Yeah.
and
Is it a big dog too?
it's kind of a big dog, yeah. But
Yeah.
my reactions aren't normal. It isn't me,
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, I think it's hard. And it's hard to explain to people my reactions because I'm usually a calm person
Yeah.
and a dog lover.
Well, as long as you explain, then, people
Yeah,
understand.
and after it was totally fine. I can pet him now. It's a
Yeah.
cute dog.
Good.
And also, when it comes to sudden sounds, for example, when I wear my earpods listening to a podcast and someone texts me, this sudden pling can make me feel like I'm electrocuted or something.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
But this
Well, I
is
guess
all.
your senses are alert. Yeah, on high
Yeah, and I
alert.
can be totally calm and in a normal situation, and it kind of just sets in
Yeah,
a
you
way.
are calm.
And crowds, they completely drain me, especially when it's sudden or unplanned in a way. Big spaces full of people make me feel like I can't breathe sometimes. It's like my body is scanning for threats that aren't even there. And it isn't all about anxiety. I feel like it's kind of different, hard to explain again. And this was new to me, I used to get more energized being around people.
I know.
And also settings like funerals, for instance. I've been to a few after everything. That's a setting that takes so much of me. It's like I said, I'm like a soldier on guard. It's totally draining and exhausting. And me not being able to cry, even, I sometimes feel like I have no tears left, to be honest. And it's kind of normal to cry in funerals, and I just can't let myself burst
Yeah.
into tears because then I don't know if I'd ever stop. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's like you're protecting yourself then.
Kind
But
of.
then you probably feel like you look cold, but you're not.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, don't worry about those things. But I've seen that in you though, and I've also seen how much effort you put into handling all those things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I had to learn how to cope instead of just pushing through or avoid. Of course, I also do that. But I think I'm quite good at it now, actually, to kind of cope with this situation, or try at least.
Yeah, and I think that's important to say. You've worked so hard to understand yourself, to find ways to live with this instead of fighting against it. And that is huge.
Yeah, and I think that's crucial to acknowledge and recognize. At the same time, I know this won't resonate with everyone. Not everyone who grieves will experience trauma like this, because grief is deeply personal and it affects people in different ways. And some will relate to what I'm saying, and for others, it might not feel relevant at all. And that's okay, because this is my story and my experience. But I do believe that understanding trauma, how it works or can work, how it lingers in different ways, can be helpful for many people, whether they've lived through it themselves or are supporting someone who has or are. Because even if your experiences are different, there is always something to learn for all of us, I guess.
For
Or it is.
sure. Yes. And I really appreciate that you're saying that. Not everyone's grief look the same, and not everyone will experience trauma in this way. Luckily, I have to say. But for those who do, I imagine it must be such a relief to hear that what they're feeling isn't just in their head. So, what have you found that helps? Other things that you can do to prevent those overwhelming reactions, or at least manage them when they come?
Yeah, there are a few things that helps me. Of course, running and tiring my body physically, as I talked about, the ice dipping and cold showers and nature, those
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
And also, for example, in crowds, like in airports, I can use my noise canceling headphones. I love them.
Mhm.
I also listen to a lot of books and podcasts, about random stuff to calm me. And I need the readers to have calm voices, or else I will turn them off. I sometimes even fall asleep listening to books. And
Yeah.
this, I must say, is when I feel off. I'm kind of normal in between.
You definitely
Mostly
are.
normal.
Silly girl. But how about everyday life in general, though? Do you have any tips?
Mm. First of all, I think this is the most important one. Dare to be open to the people around you. It makes things so much easier, not just for you, but for the ones close to you also. So that's my biggest tip.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I listen to a lot of music that doesn't give me any emotions or memories, like jazz in the background or just calm piano music. It's quite calming to just have music in the background that doesn't give you any thoughts and feelings, instead of TV and your normal playlist. And also, when I'm in crowded places, I try to focus on the small things around me when I feel these reactions are sneaking in. I mean, like could be the texture of my sweater or my breathing, so I don't get overwhelmed, or I don't know, simply avoid them.
Yeah, but avoiding isn't always the best thing to do, or I don't know. And that's also so important because I think a lot of people don't realize that healing isn't about getting rid of these reactions completely, avoiding, as you say, but about finding ways to live with them. I mean, because you have to.
Yeah, for me, it's about understanding why they happen and then finding strategies to work with your body instead of against it, maybe.
And I think, like, it sounds like you're doing a good job.
I don't know. But honestly, as I said, one of the biggest things I've learned is that I have to be open about it, or I try at least to explain my reactions to the people around me, because if you people around me, don't know what's going on, you can't always support me. It used to feel awkward to say, hey, just so you know, loud spaces and noises make me anxious. But now I see that the right people will get it, and it can help both me and them.
Yeah. And the people who don't, I mean, if they don't want to understand, well, maybe they're not the people you need in your life.
I guess you're right. And of course, you can't go around telling everyone that's just not necessary or helpful either. But another thing, I might have mentioned this before, but I don't have FOMO anymore. I used to feel guilty for not saying yes to everything before. for needing more quiet, for being the one who always leaves early or the one who doesn't drink alcohol. But now I'm so much more selective in how I use my energy. I don't feel bad for protecting my peace. And actually, therefore, I'm way more present in the things I do choose to be a part of also.
And that is such a powerful shift. I have definitely, like I've said before, noticed this. And sometimes I feel bad for you, but because in my eyes, I'm thinking that you miss out on so many things the rest of us do together, like our road trips. I know I mentioned it before.
Yeah, because you
Doing
have a
things
huge
together.
FOMO.
Because I do have huge FOMO. And I
You
do
do.
feel bad for you that you're not a part of it. But for you, that is a choice that you make because it's right for you. And I respect that and I understand. But does it ever feel isolating for you though?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I do feel weird at times. Like I have this invisible handicap that other people can't see. And of course, I wish I was more normal, I guess. I wish I could join you more,
Yeah, but you
maybe.
don't have to if it doesn't feel right to you, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just the way it is right now. I
Yeah.
mean, for the people around me, not you, but I look fine, I function well, but inside I don't know, there are moments when I feel like I'm working twice as hard just to exist normally in a space, and that's tough to explain to people, some people at least.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But I also think, as you said, that by talking about it, by being open, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping others who feel the same way but don't have the words for it yet.
I hope so, because the biggest lessons I've learned is that trauma doesn't mean you're totally broken. It just means you have to learn and find new ways of navigating the world and your life, and that's okay. I think you can do it.
And with the right tools, the right people, and the right mindset, you can move forward. Not by pretending the trauma isn't there, but by making space for yourself to heal in your own way. Is that a good takeaway from this, you think?
I think that's a perfect takeaway. It's not about going back to who you were before. It's about learning how to be okay with who you are now, I guess you can say.
Now I want to hear more about the importance of feeling safe in all this, because I remember you talked about how your house became your safe haven. How important was that for you?
That was everything. Those first weeks after my husband passed away, I hardly left the house, just these small hikes and such. And then for months after, when I would go outside, within minutes, I'd feel restless, almost anxious. I just wanted to get back home outside. I was looking at my phone all the time, waiting for him to call, and when I came home, I could kind of let the guard down.
Like the world was too unpredictable, kind of?
I guess you could say that. When your brain is in survival mode, it craves safety, familiarity, and control. And home was the only place I felt like I could relax or try, at least in the beginning after he died. It just felt most safe.
And maybe also because you knew that you could break down in there by yourself, have all the emotions without everyone around witnessing it, maybe. But
Hmm.
I remember you also became really prepared for anything, like you always had a bag ready to go.
Yeah, and honestly, I still do. But I just have to say, because I'm a person that needs to kind of go to the darkest place alone, and we all are different here.
Hmm.
But for me, that's kind of my grieving process. I need to do the hard stuff all by myself. And of course, we are very different here. But
Yeah.
I just have to say that this is normal too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I think you and me are probably different there. I feel like I would cling to somebody if
Yeah, and
something
I don't
happened.
think you
But maybe
fully know.
yeah, maybe you don't know until you're in that situation.
Yeah, but I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Everything, every reaction, every way of coping is, if it works for you, it's the best way, you know. But as you said, even now I can be ready to leave in 2 minutes, bag packed, keys in my hand, phone always charged, always sound on when I'm out, everything. Is this weird leftover survival instinct? Like my brain is still saying, be ready, anything can happen. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah. And now that my boyfriend is also sick, this is my reality again. So I'm always prepared. There is always some part of me scanning for what's next. But it's just the way it is. And I think part of why I manage this so well is because, I mean, I have learned to live this way. I know what calms me, I know what drains me. And now I have to be close to my boyfriend. Just being around him calms me, even when everything else feels uncertain. So he actually calms my nervous system and lowers my heart rate. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And also, again, I must say, having you all around me, family and friends, I'm very lucky because everyone close to me truly understands. You people around don't expect anything from me, and that makes it so much easier. So I can just be me the way I need to be right now.
Yeah. Of course we are. And again, that's what family and friends are for. And you being so open about your needs makes it easier, of course. So the takeaway from this is that grief makes your brain crave safety. If someone in grief withdraws, it's not because they don't want to see people. It's because their brain is literally trying to protect them. And maybe also find those who help you calm your nervous system. That is important.
Yes.
When did you realize that what you were feeling wasn't just grief, but also something deeper? Prolonged grief, maybe?
Honestly, it took years. At first, I thought I was just changed, different, more anxious, more on edge, damaged goods.
Stop.
And I must also say, the health anxiety I had 11 years ago, that's when it started, when my husband had his first cancer, or right after, I actually became a full blown hypochondriac. Every little ache, I thought, this is it. This is something deadly. I think I checked my whole body a ridiculous number of times. Tubes up, both up and down, scans downstairs, checks
Down under.
down under. It was so, I don't know. It was a lot and stupid. I can say now because, yeah, but it was very draining and also so shameful to have this kind of egoistic thoughts about me being sick all of a sudden.
No, I don't think so. I think it's totally understandable, but at the same time, that must have been so exhausting for you because I do remember your struggles.
It really was. My brain was constantly scanning for threats. And it wasn't until years later, probably around, I don't know, 2020, that I started to feel like I had some control over it again. I had to make a conscious choice to let it go because the weight of it all just got too heavy. So I kind of took the reins back in a way, and thankfully the hypochondriac part of me went missing. Well, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like this tiny devil on my shoulder sometimes. But now I have tools and a really good doctor who gets it also.
Yeah, and that is good to hear because good doctor who listens is very important. But I also think it's so relatable because even if it softens, it doesn't just disappear, does it?
No, that's exactly it. It kind of lives in the body still. Like even now, my body still reacts in different ways, heart racing, muscle tense. It's like a part of me is still on guard, even when my mind is trying to move forward. And since I'm in this situation again now with my boyfriend's illness and everything, there is something re traumatizing about it. The professional calls it PTSD, and yeah, it's deeply personal, but I've learned that sharing and openness helps. And it's actually been a kind of a relief to have a name for it because now I understand myself better. I understand my reactions. And I honestly thought you'd have to be in a real war or some real trauma to be diagnosed with PTSD, but no.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome, right?
Hmm.
And that makes so much sense. And honestly, it's hard to hear. Of course, I knew this, but I'm really glad you're talking about it here too, because it shows something really important, that grief isn't just emotional, it's physical as well. It lives in your body long after the moment of loss has passed. And if someone hasn't experienced trauma, that might be hard to relate to. And that's okay too. And I know some people say that why do we always have to put a diagnosis on things? But I think that for some it can actually help, just so you don't feel so alone. So I don't always think that that is true, what they say.
Well, people say what people say, but for me, it was better because
Yeah.
then it was more understandable. But anyways, we all carry different things, but the more we talk about it, the more normal it becomes, whether it's a diagnosis or a trauma or yeah, I really believe that.
Dissociation, the brain's escape button. We discussed this, right? And you feel like this is a thing that you are prepared to be open about?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I remember you told me about this last summer, the first time it happened, and you went through some real tough times last summer with your boyfriend's unexpected operation and when all that happened. So,
Mhm.
the dissociation, what did that feel like? I honestly hadn't heard much about it before.
Me neither. And it was honestly kind of terrifying. To be completely honest, I'd had some warnings about it without knowing what it was. Moments where I suddenly felt like I wasn't really in myself in a way. Like I wasn't a person when, I don't know, I was in a group of people, even with my people, family and friends. But, anyways, it was the first time it happened. I was at a grocery store. I was picking up a few things for my boyfriend. And it was a normal day. Everything felt fine, but I had these warning signs, as I said. But of course, I didn't know there were warning signs of this when it happened.
What was the warning signs?
Like I didn't feel like myself.
Okay.
I just didn't feel like a person.
Okay.
It's hard to explain
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it was like watching myself from the outside. I was there, but not fully present, like floating behind a glass wall or something. It felt like I was in a dream, just totally disconnected from me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember what I was doing there, what I was going to buy, who I was, nothing. I remember calling my boyfriend to make him repeat what to buy, trying to act normal, but I just couldn't hear or remember or take in what he even said to me. And the scariest part was not knowing what it was. I thought something was physically wrong, like, am I having a stroke, a brain bleed?
I can't imagine. That sounds really scary.
It was, but I have to say, my closest friend has been my absolute lifesaver through this more than once. That first time it happened in the grocery store, after I called my boyfriend, I walked out to my car, called her because I knew she could help me with this. And she stayed on the phone with me, calming me down. And she is one of my safest people. And the fact that she is a cognitive therapist, that's a huge bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And she was actually the first person who put a name to it there and then. Dissociation.
Hmm.
That was the thing. Because of course I'm a nurse, so I had to smile to myself in the mirror in the car, lift both of my arms,
Oh,
to
yeah,
see
yeah.
if I was actually having a stroke.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing I did.
Do the ABCs. That's what I do
Mm.
when I have a moment. Anyways, thank God for her. And I have to say that kind of support is golden.
Yeah, it really is. And I've told her this so many times. She's one of the reasons I've stayed grounded, both in those moments and in general, really. But here is something that helped me understand it better. Dissociation is actually something most people do, just in smaller ways. Like when you drive to work and then suddenly realize you don't even remember the drive, or when you're in a conversation and totally zone out. That's kind of a dissociation too. And that is, or at least for me, good to know. It makes it more manageable in a way, more normal. It's just that for people who experience trauma or high stress, it can happen in much bigger and scarier ways. So, yeah.
That actually makes it easier to understand because I've had that drive to work experience for sure. I mean, I don't work, but that feeling of, am I driving on the right side of the road now? I actually do get that feeling like, oh, should I be in the left lane?
Yeah,
Sounds
because you
stupid, but yeah,
dissociate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just slightly panic for a second until I see cars in front of me finally. Or yeah.
Yeah. So, normal folks do it too. So, I really want to normalize the conversation around this because it's a normal thing that can happen to everyone. And I must say, when my doctor confirmed it, when I told her everything, it was actually such a relief. She said, your brain is just protecting you. It's your system saying, this is too much. So I'm checking out for a bit. And that helped. It helped me understand. And she helped me understand.
And that's why it's so important to actually talk to your doctor, not just about physical symptoms, but about how you're doing emotionally, mentally. Everything is connected because mental health is health.
Yes, yes, yes. We're so used to thinking we should only bring up the visible stuff. But often that's all connected to what's going on in your mind. And being honest about that with your doctor, that's a game changer.
So, for anyone listening, if you felt this or felt something like it and it scared you, don't keep it to yourself. Talk to someone. Tell your doctor. You're not weird and you're not alone.
Exactly. And remember, this is my story and it won't be the same for everyone. But if it helps someone feel seen or less afraid to ask for help, then it's worth sharing. You're not broken, you're just human. And there is help, always.
So, what we've come back to a few times already is the importance of having good people around you. I know that's something we all probably know, but it really does make a world of difference, especially when you're going through something heavy. And for you, Nina, one of the biggest turning points was having a doctor who actually listened, right?
Yeah, she really sees me, and I never feel judged or like I have to defend how I'm feeling. She validates everything and she listens to me. She has time for me. I feel seen.
Good.
She explains it in a way that makes sense. And that one time she said my brain wasn't broken, just stuck in survival mode. And that made it less scary somehow. Just understanding it make the whole experience a little easier to carry.
And that's huge because when you're in it, it does feel like you're broken, probably.
It really does. But she told me your brain is doing its job, is trying to keep you alive. When we go through trauma or prolonged stress, our nervous system flips into high alert, releasing adrenaline, cortisol. The body gets used to being in crisis. And when the crisis is over, your brain doesn't always get the memo. It keeps scanning for danger even when there is none. And now going through something difficult again, I can feel my system slipping back into that state. So yeah, it's kind of ongoing, but still it is better, and I've learned to live with it.
Yeah, it's probably more manageable. But that also explains that hyper awareness that you talked about before, like your whole body's on alert.
Exactly. I don't fully trust the world anymore, kind of. It was exhausting, still is at times, but I've been lucky. I have some real angels in my life. And the one I called from my car that time at the store, she's been there for me in ways I can't even describe. So I'm lucky.
And she's also a therapist, right? So you're lucky
Mhm.
with that. I'm sure that's such a great help.
Yes, she is, as I said, a cognitive therapist. And she helped me so much, not just as a friend, but with real practical tools. One of the biggest ones was something called cognitive restructuring, basically learning to catch a negative thought, question it, and reframe it. So if I thought something bad will happen if I let my guard down now, she would gently ask, where is the proof of that? And then we'd reframe it to, my brain is trying to protect me, but I'm safe right now.
That is so calming, but also very personal and not necessarily for everyone.
Absolutely, for sure. This isn't a one size fits all kind of thing, but I do believe there's something for everyone out there. You just have to dare to be open, as we keep repeating, speak your truth. Find someone, whether it's a doctor, a psychologist, a support group, or a friend who makes you feel safe and who understands you.
And these people do exist, even if it doesn't always feel like it. There are even online support groups, peer networks, local services, depending on where you live, of course.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Living in Norway, I'm so grateful for the healthcare system we have. I have to say it again. You still have to fight a bit sometimes, but in general, you can get help. In the US, I know it can be a lot harder, more expensive, more complicated. And that breaks my heart because mental health should never be a luxury. But still, whatever country you're in, finding what works for you is really key. You don't need a million people, just one or two who really gets it.
So true. And you also talked about that thought containment strategy before, which I love. Setting boundaries with yourself, right?
Yeah, I realized that if I let myself spiral all day long, I'd never get a break. So I made a deal with myself. You can go down the rabbit hole, but during this part of the dog walk, or only for 10 minutes now, and after that, done, back to the world. It's called thought containment, and it actually works, for me at least. Eventually, my brain started trusting those limits.
Hmm. And running, ice sipping, love, laughter, all part of the toolbox too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I still use those tools today. It's about learning how to live well with the hard stuff too. And I'm incredibly grateful for the people who helped me learn that, especially my dearest friend, who's been my rock, my mirror, my sanity check, and sometimes my actual brain when mine wasn't working. I love her so much.
Yeah. And she's also the one that we ask for advice when it comes to this podcast, right?
It is. Yes.
Send it to
Thanks for
her.
the, yeah.
Yeah. She sounds like, or she is the real MVP, right?
MVP. I always hear that, but what does it actually mean?
It means most valuable player. I guess it's kind
Mhm.
of a sports term originally, best player. But now it just means someone who's made the biggest difference. I think we can say the one who showed up, stood strong, and kept you going.
Okay, I love that. And yes, she's absolutely my MVP, no contest. And I love how this conversation keeps reminding us healing isn't something you do alone. You don't have to do it perfectly either. You just have to start, I guess.
When we first started planning this episode, as we said in the beginning here, I wasn't sure how interesting it would be for people. I mean, the brain, really? I just wasn't convinced that talking about cortisol and stress responses would resonate.
Yeah, but grief literally rewires your brain. This is important, and I'm glad you stayed open because look where we ended up.
Hmm. I completely changed my mind. Hearing your story, Nina, and just diving into all those layers, reading, learning, it made me realize that understanding what's happening inside of us is actually one of the most compassionate things we can do for ourselves and for each other, really.
Yeah, because grief isn't just emotional, it changes your brain chemistry. It alters how you see and experience the world, and all of that is normal.
So, what have we learned today? Me, at least, have learned that grief is not just emotional, it's physical, neurological, and deeply personal. It affects our thoughts, our bodies, and even our sense of time and space.
Exactly. It changes your brain chemistry. There is nothing wrong with you if you feel overwhelmed, disconnected, anxious, or even numb. It's your brain trying to protect you. That's what it is.
That's such an important reminder, and also something to hold on to for those of us supporting someone who's grieving. It's not about fixing them, it's about understanding them. Grief shows up in many ways, and some of those ways are invisible, but no less real.
Yeah. And healing isn't about getting over it, it's about learning how to live with your loss without shame, without rushing it. Grief doesn't mean you're broken, it means you've loved deeply. Your brain is adapting, you're surviving, and that in itself is an act of courage, I think we can say.
Mhm. So if you're in it right now, please give yourself grace. Seek out the support that feels right for you, whether that's a friend, a therapist, a support group, or even a podcast like this. There is help out there, both online and offline.
And don't underestimate the power of one good doctor or one close friend who really sees you. Find your people, talk to your doctor, not just about your physical health, but your emotional health too. It matters. And hey, if you're the MVP in someone's life right now, thank you. You matter more than you know.
You do. Because healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about learning to carry it differently, with softness, with grace, and sometimes even with a little bit of humor.
So true. But we talked a lot today about how trauma can shape us. But there is also something called post traumatic growth. It's when through the pain you end up discovering strengths you didn't know you had, seeing life more clearly, or building deeper relationships.
That's such a great takeaway when talking about grief and trauma, because there's always something to learn for everyone.
Yes, and there is always hope, even if it's hard to see at first. Sometimes it's a choice you have to make to keep looking for that small light and to believe that we can find our way forward.
And maybe that's where our inner strength shows up. Even if we don't feel strong, we take one step, then another, and somehow that becomes strength.
Exactly. It doesn't erase the loss, and it's not about being grateful for it, but about recognizing the ways we can still grow, even in our hardest seasons. There can be something unexpectedly beautiful ahead.
And I think that's a hopeful note to end on today. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
We're so glad you're here with us. It isn't always easy to talk about this, but I really think it matters. And as always, be kind to your brain. It's been through a lot. Let it rest, let it rewire, let it grow with you.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, breathe, rest, reflect, and know that you're not alone.
Nina had a dream, all black and white. We were talking in English, yeah, that ain't right. Two Norwegian sisters miles apart, but that dream lit a fire, put a mic to the heart. Katrine's in the States, Nina's back home. Two voices, one mission through the microphone. Grief and life, the highs and the lows. We hit record, where the file go? Oh, we fumble, we stumble, but baby we shine. Lost the intro, never mind. Wi-Fi shaky, cables crossed, but our hearts stay strong, no moment lost. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. Grief walks in, pulls up a chair, says I'll stay a while, yeah, life ain't fair. But we mix it with laughter, a toast in hand, finding light where the dark still stands. Ba-da-da-boo-doo, is this thing on? Mic's on mute, oh well, move along. Ba-ba-dee, ba-ba-da, take two. Oops, too late, let's laugh it through. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. So plug in, lean in, let's take our time. No script, no filters, just rhythm and rhyme. We're here, we're now, we're in our prime. Two sisters, one dream, on the mic we shine.